you mentioned Joel Embiid. So he shot 5 for 15 from the field, went to the line 11 times, 19 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists. Here's a clip of Nick Nurse after game one talking about the defense on Joel Embiid and the refs really allowing the Sixers to get away with some stuff.
We got to believe that if we're legal defensively, that they're going to call those. Right? Like, we had a couple times where we beat him to the spot and he bowled us right over and they just let him lay it in. I don't care if you're 5'11" and 160 pounds, if you beat him to the spot and he runs you over, it's a foul. I thought he threw 3 or 4 elbows to the face. He got called for 1. Okay? We're going to stand in there, but we just need, if we're legal defensively, then we got to have him called, or we don't have a chance. Period. Nobody can guard that guy if he's just going to let him run. They're just going to let him run you over time and time again. But we're going to stand in there and we'll see if we don't get a few more elbow to the face calls and a few more beating them to the spot calls.
So Nick is saying, let us play ethical defense. When you're watching the tape, what are you seeing in terms of some of those calls that Nick was referencing?
Yeah, no, I could see like where he would be upset. There were like 3 or 4 instances where the Raptors were in place, built the wall, hands straight up. Either it was Chris Boucher and Embiid would just like go up and they give him the free throw, or the play where Kem Birch is standing right in front of him, Embiid bowls him, lowers the shoulder, knocks him over, trips over his carcass as he's shooting, and they call the foul on Kem Birch. And it's like, okay, so those are very frustrating because literally if you allow that, first off, those are just like, those either aren't fouls or some of those are quite frankly offensive fouls. Like if you allow that, then what do you really do, right? There's not even going to be a series. I think that's why Nick was so quick to point it out. Look, I thought Nick was always going to talk about the officiating at some point, and that was like halfway he talked about it. Like, I don't even think Nick will get fined for that. So that won't be the last time. And quite frankly, if you've ever watched a Sixers game with these two, that wasn't even that bad. There were some tricks and stuff like that. And I went through and put a highlight reel together. The responses became so toxic on Twitter, I literally just like stopped using Twitter for a whole day.
Twitter toxic during the playoffs?
Yeah, so no, I literally stopped. It was either Raptor fans being like, the NBA is cheating us out of a championship, or it was like Sixer fans being like, these are all fouls and you don't know ball. And I'm like, I don't need to use my app. I'm good. I have lots of apps on my phone. In fact, I could just disconnect.
So are you saying you took a holistic approach this weekend?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me about earlier, but that's fine. We'll get into nitty-gritty right here. And it's like, I think what Nick is saying is really just like, give us a chance to play basketball.
Yep.
Right? Of course, there are things that you get upset by. Like when Embiid elbowed Kem Birch in the temple and he fell down for the whole possession because, a 300-pound man elbowed him in the temple. And the referees just don't call anything, and the play goes on. It's 4-on-5. And the Raptors go on, and they score 4-on-5. And then they still don't really get Kem back into the play. And it's like, okay, you might want to call that, once in a while. If guys are in legal help position, you have to like give the Raptors that chance to actually guard rather than just giving him these calls. But having said that, though, Embiid and Harden combined for 18 free throws? That's very normal. You're kind of more or less actually going to have to live with that for the most part. So I think it's fine for Nick to point that out, but I don't think he actually went all the way in on the officials as he could have. I think some of the other calls, though, like, they do add up, they do frustrate you, but also ultimately at the end of the day, you look at a scenario like the Sixers getting to the free throw line 34 times. That's not that much of a surprise. I think what hurt you the most was the fact that you had 2 rotation players fouling out. You had Scotty Barnes, who had his ankle stepped over. He's writhing on the floor in pain, and the officials don't even stop the game. They're like, yeah, he's fine. He's flopping. They're like, are you serious?
And that was at the same time that Fred fouled out.
So
right?
Fred had to take a 6th foul just to like bring assistance to the game because the officials couldn't see anything. Right? Like those things are obviously going to frustrate you after a game. But ultimately, you're going to have to live with the fact that the Sixers are going to shoot more free throws than you. That's just how it is. Which, by the way, it is kind of funny to me that the NBA is like the one sport where you just like, the average fan is just like made to accept that rules are slightly different for star players. They're like, it's just like two sets of rules, right? Like, it's like, obviously I'm wearing like a Liverpool kit right now, right? But like, I know what a foul is in soccer, right? You can, like, there are certain things that are clearly fouls. I'm not even saying, like soccer officiating is the best, but like the rules are the rules for everybody. The rules are the rules for everybody in hockey. There's not like, oh yeah, Sidney Crosby is just allowed to trip people because he's Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, name two more hockey superstars as examples.
Austin Matthews.
Damn.
Who's Case? Kerfoot?
You don't have
John
to name
Tavares.
just-
Yeah, so there's a
damn.
whiteboard in front of us that actually has the
All right, you
least
did it.
storylines.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, oh yeah, they're just allowed to cross-check because, we have to keep them in the game because that's what's going to bring the fans in. Like, I think the NBA is so desperate sometimes to like, oh, we have to keep our stars in the game. We have to like sell this game that we just create a double standard, which I think is objectively a turnoff for everybody.
It is a turnoff because it's literally a talking point every single spring when the playoffs start.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and that's the reason why. But it's called preferential treatment at the workplace. You know what I'm saying? It happens everywhere.
Okay, but it's also called sports. Like the whole idea is you compete and see who wins.
In the playoffs, no one's trying to lose. No, trust me, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Nick also.
Anyway, that's not the reason why the Raptors lost the game. Can we also be clear about that? That's not the reason why the Raptors lost
the Raptors lost because they played terribly.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't show up on the defensive end. And the injuries multiply the issues going into tonight.